I think sales people will get replaced. Actually, a large majority of them will get replaced. And as a business owner now, I'll tell you exactly why I think that and what I'm already seeing in the masterminds that I'm in and what you can do to actually prepare yourself to, stay relevant, still make the money that you want to make. If you are a disposable, redundant sales hire, you're gonna get axed, right? Because the ad spend, the marketing spend and energy to fill your calendar just won't be worth it if there's other things that can replace your production for a fraction of the expense. But you have to leave behind the employee mindset. This isn't something that you just leave corporate behind and like all of a sudden you have freedom, right? Freedom and lifestyle. You have to come into this willing to develop, willing to see yourself as a business owner, because you only make money when you actually close deals. You don't understand that we have maybe 18 months for you to make as much money as possible, put some serious money away, like feel taken care of before the industry is completely different. And if you're in scarcity when that comes around, it's going to be very difficult for you to problem solve and find bigger opportunities, right? Meanwhile, the people that are printing right now, the people that are putting money away, are going to be able to capitalize on those opportunities and just magnify their wealth. Okay, so if you haven't realized that there's going to be these massive economic shifts in the next couple of years, and that hasn't created serious urgency for you to develop your skill in whatever it is that you're involved in, you're going to get left behind. I think a lot of people are going to struggle financially because of the incoming changes in our economy through AI and job displacement, and just in macroeconomic movements, when it comes to deeper recessions and things like that. And, I think there's this narrative of people saying, hey, get into sales, get into high ticket sales, because it's going to be the last thing that's going to be replaced. And since I'm always real with you guys, and I think I actually scare a lot of people away from this industry. I think sales people will get replaced. Actually, a large majority of them will get replaced. And as a business owner now, I'll tell you exactly why I think that and what I'm already seeing in the masterminds that I'm in and what you can do to actually prepare yourself to, stay relevant, still make the money that you want to make in the industry that we're in. Because while the industry might grow, how the industry has been structured in terms of building sales teams is very different and will be very different than it was 5 to 7 years ago, which is still a narrative that influencers tell you about what this industry really looks like. It's actually, the dynamic has changed tremendously. So one of the things I want you guys to understand is, there will be booms and busts in every economy, and they're driven by different tech advances, different political shifts, et cetera, et cetera. AI is going to replace more roles than people think. And one of the things, if you take anything from this video, is that do not be that person that says, oh, AI can't replace humans yet. Oh, people don't want to buy from robots, they want to buy from people. That's just cope straight up. Right. And that tells me you're actually not playing and you're not studying AI and its capabilities as quick as you actually need to. And so what I mean by that, if you've actually been utilizing AI, even if you're a sales rep, guys, like you need to look at yourself as a business owner. You can see how advanced it's already gotten in the last 6 months. The things that we're doing as a company with Claude, in how we're empowering our sales team, reviewing calls, giving feedback, managing multiple parts of the operation, removing what used to be like non-negotiables, like hires to a company. We're now removing those things with AI. And as a business, it isn't like it just, why would you want to pay $6,000 to $10,000 in a redundant role if AI can do it for you for a couple $100 a month? Right. So I'm not saying that to like scare you. I'm like saying that that's how business owners and founders are thinking. And so if you are a disposable, redundant sales hire, you're gonna get axed, right? Because the ad spend, the marketing spend and energy to fill your calendar just won't be worth it if there's other things that can replace your production for a fraction of the expense. Okay, so I'm going to actually walk you guys through different pieces of the sales process that will get replaced in the next 6 months, right? And how that's going to impact, an average sales rep and is going to create a lot of displacement and job opportunities. Now, when I was saying before too about cope, right? Oh, people don't want to buy from robots. That's absolutely untrue. More and more people are just willing to buy, expensive high ticket programs without getting on sales calls. right? Well, if you even just want to look in your day to day, right? The whole fast food, minimum wage, argument that, that was a way for people to get started with, early access jobs. People are buying from kiosks at Mickey D's. People don't care if they're buying from a human or not, so long as they get their order, right? It's going to be the same thing with sales, where a very high level salesperson will not be replaced because they will be doing the job and the production of 6 other reps combined. So let's look at it right here. I want to show you guys a couple things. In the high ticket sales space, this is a typical sales process. Okay? Excuse my messy handwriting. We go from ad, right? So we call this like top of funnel, which is typically an ad, right? An ad or organic content, and that leads to a hand raiser, right? So that's going to be a freebie, that's going to be a webinar, that's going to be a community call, that's going to be a low ticket option, and then we go into some form of like conversion event. I don't even know if you guys can read that. Conversion event, right? So we go from a hand raiser to say very simply, hey, we're running a webinar, this Thursday, to the actual webinar happens. Then there's a setting call, or there's a triage call. I'm going to write out to the bubble, right? Which you guys should be familiar with if you have a setter or if you're triaging, and then a closing call. Then after the closing call, there's an onboarding, there's delivery, and then there's like an upsell or a retention. You guys like my hideous handwriting? My mother says I write like a doctor, right? Little does she know that I make way more money than one. So, this is a typical sales process, right? We have ads, we have the hand raiser, we have a conversion event that triggers someone from just being a window shopper to say, hey, maybe I should explore this. We have a setting conversation. Now, sometimes you're going to skip some of these things. Not every offer is going to have all these things in place, but all these are 4 steps that typically happen before a closer even gets on a sales call. And then these are things that happen after that are also what drives back-end revenue, back-end cash collected, and the increase of what we call LTV, so the lifetime value of a client, right? And as a sales rep, right, you guys don't necessarily need to know this, but what's really helped me out in my career is understanding all these things. And that's how I went from setter to closer and from closer to growth operator in a few years, because I've always been a problem solver and I've always been more entrepreneurial. And I do at a certain point, as much as I love sales, as much as it's changed my life, there are higher leverage opportunities to take that skill and apply it in different areas and make more money with the same amount of work, right? So one of the things here, if we look at this process, the setting of the triaging is already being replaced by AI, right? I have some of the best setters in my network, some of the best DM setters, by the way. Now, those are still very hard to replace, like a very good DM setter, but the majority of offers are already starting to replace it. They don't care, and this is, I was talking to a growth operator this weekend. They're like, dude, you can have a 9 out of 10 setter, but how many hours a day are they actively working and actively responding? And they probably take weekends off. Right? If they've been doing this long enough and they're good, right, they probably have some consistency in their income and they actually want to enjoy their lives, right? You can have 9 out of 10, or you can have 5 out of 10s that are on 24/7 and the speed to lead is impeccable, right? And that's how business owners are starting to think. So even if you're a really good DM setter, a really good setter or triager, that is going to be on the chopping block in the next 3 to 6 months, if not already. Right? Then we look at the hand raisers, right? These are things that happen through outbound messages, right? Which is the next thing. Oops, I deleted that. Which is the next thing that's going to be phased out, if not already. Okay, top of funnel. Okay, now this is impacting a lot of people that are in the video editing, the marketing, the creative side. Claude now will do that faster, repurposing things. And people used to say, oh, you can't replace good editor. That is absolutely BS. I've looked at some of the quality and it is like, you can't even tell. That's the next thing that's going to be replaced, right? So all of a sudden, 3 out of the 4 steps in the next 6 months that lead up to a closing call can be replaced by AI. Now, on a closing call, like in our industry, you absolutely cannot replace a top tier closer yet. And I'm going to explain why. But here's the thing too with the industry, guys. And this is the thing that a lot of these influencers that only sold on one offer don't know. And so they're telling you that this is sunshine and rainbows, is that a sales team in our industry can bloat very quickly because there's very minimal outbound effort. What does that mean for all you newbies here? Is in the traditional sense of business, outbound efforts keep a business alive, and marketing is supplementary, right? You have salespeople, and this is why they get paid $80 to $120,000 base, who are responsible for prospecting, build their own book of business, and actually hunt and bring in people that have no awareness of your organization, right? And in our industry, right, we don't do that as much, right? We rely on marketing. Right? We rely on marketing to bring in leads so our closers can actually have conversations with somewhat of a warm audience, right? But that leads to a problem. That leads to a lot of these businesses needing to have more and more closers to have more available white space on their calendar, even if their ad spend isn't increasing, right? Because if they're already spending $30,000 a month to fill their calendar, they want to make sure that every white space is open to maximize speed to lead. That doesn't mean your calendar is going to be full every day, by the way. That means you're competing with other closers for those time slots. Okay? So, why do I mean that? Like, what do I mean about bloat? Well, when I say bloat, is that, and you guys have probably worked for offers like this where they bring on 8 to 10 sales reps, even though there's only enough good leads for 3. And so you have these big engines, right? That now need more ad spend. Now we need more setters. Now we need more fulfillment on the back end. And guess what shrinks? Profit margin. So even if you are making $20,000 to $30,000 a month commission, which I've done, right? The owner is making less and less money and spending more time managing this massive machine. And that's why we've seen, by the way, if you guys haven't been around the industry long enough, we have seen some of the biggest business coaches shut down their operations, right? Why? Because they just became, ball and chain, shackled to the thing that they built, right? Because they had a team and people to be responsible for. And so what have they done now? They've restructured. They have AI agents in place. Some of these don't even have a sales team. And those that do, actually very much like me, we have one specific sales hire, right? One sales hire that's responsible for essentially the entirety of the sales side of things, who acts like a partner in the business, is rewarded like a partner, right? And is incentivized to keep their department as lean as possible. And that's a direction we're going to be going in, right? Where you're going to have these coaching businesses that once would be able to employ 20 sales reps now only need 3, right? Because they don't want to build a huge machine again with slim profit margin, and they don't need to because AI is replacing a lot of those redundant roles, okay? Another thing, on the back end, onboarding will be very much done through AI, right? For you guys that actually haven't worked with me, one of the first things we do in the Cafes for Closers, my paid community, is we have sales reps like run their current sales transcripts through some of our AI agents. So by the time they come onto their first coaching call with me and my team, we already have exact data to tell us what are the 3 high leverage things to focus on, right? So we don't have to have more CSMs, right? With giving our reps the tools, they come to the pre-existing sales coaching calls much more prepared with hours worth of sales calls analyzed, right? So what does that mean? Less CSMs are required, right? That means in terms of the delivery, we can give better delivery without having as many coaches on staff and on standby. And then, so these are 2 things that are, again, going to be replaced. And then finally, the upsell process, right now should fall under, if you guys aren't doing that as a closer, that should be your responsibility unless it's the responsibility of a CSM. But the upsell process is going to be more and more done through founders just being able to just DM people, which you can automate through, hey, how are you liking the program? Sorry you're coming up. What are some big wins? If you'd like to hop on a call with me, we can map out the next 6 months, or you can just upsell them then and there again. So that's another thing that's going to be replaced by AI, right? So now these are so many different pieces of the sales process that are going to be offloaded. So what does that mean? If you're a very good closer, very good and you've actually identified ways to leverage AI and you know how to prompt right and you know how to look for inefficiencies in these processes, you're going to be an invaluable asset. You're going to be able to do the job of 5 other mediocre closers because your white space is maximized. You're going to know how to improve the AI processes throughout all of this to make sure that your show rate and your close rate maintains as high as possible. Again, in being an actual producer, not a princess closer, right? But if you're not that, if you're not consistently upskilling, if you're not actually looking for ways to like produce revenue outside of just, handling objections, you will absolutely get replaced, right? And I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing when people are telling you to get into this industry is like, yes, absolutely, it's an incredible industry. Pause, we're going to cut that out. It's an incredible industry that has a lot of opportunity, but you have to leave behind the employee mindset. This isn't something that you just leave corporate behind and like all of a sudden you have freedom, right? Freedom and lifestyle. You have to come into this willing to develop, willing to see yourself as a business owner because you only make money when you actually close deals and realize this is the environment that you are now playing in. And for anyone that's in this industry that doesn't have a serious sense of urgency to upskill, my friend, you are going to get left behind. I talk to a lot of reps that are like, yeah, I just want to get some experience over the next 3 months. I just want to, get on a new offer. And whether they work with me or not, I don't really care. But it's that energy of like, you don't understand that we have maybe 18 months for you to make as much money as possible, put some serious money away, like feel taken care of before the industry is completely different. And if you're in scarcity when that comes around, it's going to be very difficult for you to problem solve and find bigger opportunities, right? Meanwhile, the people that are printing right now, the people that are putting money away, are going to be able to capitalize on those opportunities and just magnify their wealth, okay? So these are the things that I think are really important to understand. Like when recessions come, right? There's redundant roles that have been already replaced where people are making 80 to 120K in the corporate world, right? Maybe working a few hours a week, right? Doing things that have now been automated by AI. Lawyers, right? Those types of roles, like lawyers, white collar executive roles, AI agencies with all these account managers. These are things that are going to get replaced by AI and replaced very efficiently. Those are people, by the way, that are going to come into our industry as the high ticket sales space matures, right? There's going to be more opportunity for more experienced people, for people that are a little bit older to sell as, e-learning starts attracting older and older people, right? Because it's not going to be as foreign of a thing. It's not going to be just, learn how to be a day trader to 22-year-olds. Right, but that also means there's going to be even more competition for what's going to be a less and less, for I guess more and more finite roles. Right, Joel Elster, the owner of Nomadic Closers, a great friend of mine, already talks about this. That the good roles, like there's not that many out there, right? And you have all these reps thinking that there's just an infinite supply, right? They're like if you're good, there's no shortage, right? But if you're mediocre and if you're going to cost the company more time and more money and you're not a problem solver thinking, 6 months ahead, a year ahead, again, you are going to get replaced and you are going to be the first to really experience this recession with all its fury. So again, this isn't like fear mongering. Like I don't like doing that, but I just think like if you can really look at these next 18 months with some serious urgency, right? Level up your skill so no matter what, you always have a skill that can produce income. And then bolster that by being aware of the things that are getting replaced so you can get ahead of it and be proactive. Then you will be in a very good spot to capitalize on serious wealth building over these next 2 years. I hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next one.